I really appreciated her play-by-play of what was going on in her brain, because a lot of times when it comes to stories of trauma, I think that subjective narrative experience is what's missing.
First, she is a writer of books, blogs, and television. It's Dana Schwartz.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How have you been, Dana?
Good. We were just commenting, I'm in a closet right now that I wallpapered with peel and stick wallpaper. So that was my latest project.
We are all turning into we're all nesting.
Doers.
The pandemic is forcing us all to nest.
Exactly. That's it. It's like I'm spending so much time at home and I'm just like, what can I do? What can I change?
She is a director, writer, comedian, actor. She has a short film called I Would Never it's up for award consideration, right?
Yeah, it's FYC, which means for your consideration for the Oscars. So if there's any voters, guys, please go check it out.
This is Kieran Deal. Kieran Deal. You guys
It's Kieran Deal. It's Kieran Deal. Hi, guys.
You know her.
Hello.
You love
No
her.
wallpaper here. No wallpaper.
But curtains. I see a curtain in the background.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So Kieran, I want to start with you. So this week, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did an Instagram live about her experience in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th when pro-Trump rioters broke in and just caused a menace. AOC has said in the past that she felt like her life was threatened, and this was the most in-depth she'd ever gone into what happened that day. She also said during the Instagram Live, which, by the way, was watched by 3.6 million people total.
Wild.
I think it was live watched by 100,000, but since it's been watched 150,000, 3.6 million people have now seen it. More people have seen this than watch most TV shows. She said at the beginning of the video that she is a survivor of sexual assault, and she talked about trauma and how trauma doesn't just go away, it sort of compounds every time something bad happens to you. And Kieran, I just watched your short film last night, which deals a lot with trauma, and I would love to hear, as somebody who's kind of been artistically making stuff about trauma, how you received AOC's Instagram Live and how it fed into your understanding of trauma.
So the short film has to do with it centers Me Too themes, and it's over the course. Aaron, you were telling Alyssa about it. It's it centers over the course of an evening. It's two friends who start together. They're lawyers and they're studying and they're friends and it's flirty, and then they hook up, and then the next morning is kind of where an assault style situation happens. But it's really subtle and I love the way you actually described it just before we started, when you're and then he gets upset and she's upset and then he's don't be upset. But it's all very there's a lot of words unsaid. It's a lot of space that's unsaid. And what I found really moving about AOC is that she was able to articulate that space so well. She was able to articulate a space of what the subjective narrative experience is of a thing. Because I think it's very easy to look at, now we're in the past, it's the Capitol thing happened, she's a very powerful woman, oh, you're fine, it was just a police officer who came through the door, it's no big deal. But the reality is that she's living it in real time while it's happening. So for her to walk us through point by point what she experienced, how she experienced it in real time, when it was unfolding, not knowing what's happening, that I think I really appreciated her play-by-play of what was going on in her brain. Because a lot of times when it comes to stories of trauma, I think that subjective narrative experience is what's missing. I think people don't understand what it looks and feels like from the side of the table of the person going through that experience. And that's what I found so compelling about, kind of her framing of her testimony.
Dana, did you watch the video and what are your reactions as a human as you've processed what she went through?
I didn't watch it live, but I did watch it afterward. And I was just, honestly floored by this amazing line that AOC walks so brilliantly. I feel for so many women in power, for so long, there's needed to be that sort of ice queen wall, the Iron Lady effect of if you're a powerful woman, you have to almost act like a man in certain ways and act in more stereotypically masculine ways and withholding your emotions and dressing more masculine. And I just thought it was so refreshing to be able to see a strong female leader be a human being, express her feelings and be honest and feel like she's leveling with us. I thought, I mean, it was just really, it's a struggle to use like positive characteristics because she's obviously talking about something so emotionally affecting. But for so many women who have gone through similar traumas, it was really heartening and brave sounds so reductive, but really brave of her to speak that vulnerably. And I thought it was brilliant.
Alyssa, during her Instagram live, AOC name checked a few people. What did you make of the fact that she went into Katie Porter's office? Can you describe a little bit about how Ayanna Pressley helped her and what that tells you about women who are in politics?
I mean, that's just like, you know, she and Ayanna Pressley, they carpooled to work that morning together. And it was the thing that I found so overwhelming, because I started, as soon as I got the notification AOC is going live, I watched the whole thing. And one, the fact that the way that she talks about it, you see them as real people. You know, like you see members of Congress as people who can't be hurt. Like even that morning when my friends and I, who had all worked together in the White House, were watching this, we were kind of watching it like it was this zany thing happening, because we're like, it's the Capitol. It's like the safest building on earth. Nothing's going to happen to them. And so as things did happen, like, and you hear also, so one, they had been told to get to the office, get to the Capitol by 9 a.m. She and Ayanna were running late. You know, Ayanna takes her to her office. She's in there with just her chief of staff. AOC's basically had her entire staff work from home. So it's just her one aide that's with her. And when this all starts to happen, I mean, it's amazing to hear her tell you how the aide was like, fucking run, like go hide. Like I got this, like go run. They go to find a friend of theirs on the 5th floor. They're not there. She ends up running into Katie Porter. And here was the not most interesting, but something that was very interesting to me, was listening to AOC tell the story. And then the next day, Katie Porter was interviewed about AOC's Instagram Live. And she tells the story. She's like, and I was in my office because Katie Porter was very unaware of what was happening. She had not heard the banging that AOC heard, you know, on her office door. So Katie Porter's kind of like, what's up? And AOC, she describes her not pejoratively in any way, but as sort of like very tunnel vision, manic, trying to find places to hide, chastising herself for wearing high heels. And Katie Porter was kind of like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And it turns out, I mean, she's not okay, but that is what happened. She went into, which I think she describes in the Instagram as fight or flight, right? And she was like getting ready for the flight. But also it's the difference between like listening to her and hearing Katie Porter's description of her. It is just this very, like, this is what was happening in her head. This is what she was demonstrating externally. And then you have someone who's not experiencing it all, who's having like a little bit of a hard time relating. Kind of like, we're going to be okay. I'm a mom. We have food. We're going to be fine. We can close our doors. And she's like, no, dude, like they're fucking coming for me. And I think that's when it also became really real for Katie Porter, when she, in the retelling, starts to get like pretty emotional when she's talking about it. So I think that, you know, it's like a crazy, it's like not a caper. I don't mean a caper, but it's like there are all these characters involved in AOC's retelling, right? There are all these people that you know and that you've seen on television, and this really happened to them, right? This isn't something that's just a story that's hyperbolic like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz would like to make you believe. This really happened, and it was really fucking scary. And when she says to Katie Porter, when she says, don't worry, Katie Porter says, don't worry, I'm a mom. Like, I'll take care of you. And AOC's like, I hope I just get to become a mom someday. I don't want to die today. And you're just like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And that was a lot for her to share. And so it's interesting what people's responses have been.
That's informed on top of like the fact that when you think about, there were those moments of like she was getting threats.
Right.
Like her experience going into that was also she was getting threats. Like, you know, people were like kind of crowding her car. So she has a bunch of things going into there where it's like they're after you in addition to previous trauma that she's kind of dealing with and how that all informs the circumstances.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that same thing, which was like AOC is like a big public enemy to these people. Like she was an actual threat. These people threaten gruesome violence to her on the internet all the freaking time. And once they broke into the Capitol, like, yeah, her fears were, at least to my mind, completely reasonable. Like that makes sense. Like these people were ready to do violence.
Right.
Yeah, she used the word disarming to talk about the way that she's like, I like to think of myself as sort of disarming when people meet me in real life. And it was like, I found that to be a really interesting, I don't think that she intended for that to be a pun, but like the idea that a woman in general, because I think about myself like that too. Like I'm disarming. If somebody thinks I'm mean because I'm mean online and they meet me in person, then I'm disarming. But it's like, what is the arming that I'm taking away from them? Like by the idea that women can be nice and make people want to hurt us less is like something that she seemed to be touching on, but not quite aware of what she was talking about. Although I do want to say AOC has definitely not been quote unquote nice about this. She is remaining public about it because she believes that people who are responsible for stoking the rage that fueled the attack on January 6th need to face some consequences for it. One thing that I found to be that kind of resonated with me, especially when I watched your film, and it just seemed to be kind of like parallel things, Kieran. So Ted Cruz tweeted something about wanting to do something about Robinhood with AOC, like Robinhood, the stock trading app, whatever. He reached out to her online and she was like, didn't you just try to have me killed 3 weeks ago? I will work with literally anyone else who is a Republican, but not you. You need to resign. And then Chip Roy, who's a representative who used to work for Ted Cruz, was like, you need to apologize. And that to me reminded me, Kieran, of the scene in your film where like your character experienced a non-consensual sex act. Like it was not consensual and she's very upset. And the guy is the one who cries. Like
he starts crying on her. Like he starts crying on her. And then she's like, are you fucking, and you can see it on the face. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? And guys, just like for the audience, like this was like weirdly synergistic that this was the topic that it relates so much to that film. I would never, but I thought that too, that it's the adding insult to injury, that the culture is just one that like, then it is okay for a man to then ask you to make him feel okay. Like not only is the trauma of the individual, the person that went through the thing dismissed, but then on top of it, it's one of the things where like, now I'm also responsible for taking care of your feelings. And to watch that play out, because this was based on real experiences, this short. And so it's like to watch that play out on a fucking national stage, just to watch it play out with another woman who's just like, it's just like this like kind of casual gaslighting. And it makes you aware like how much you as an individual or I as an individual, minimize the things that happen to us. Because I remember even when she used the word trauma, Aaron, like, initially I was like I think it's a self-preservation tactic that's like, well, that wasn't trauma, like she was okay, like it was just a Capitol police officer. It's that gesture, it's saying it in that way, like, oh, it's fine. But that's to preserve your own way of being able to walk through the world and feel okay and feel safe, because that was really fucked up what happened to her. And then it's also fucked up that after you are asked to apologize on behalf of that, and the fact that she has the mettle to kind of call that out on such a national stage and be like, hey, this is messed up, and also this is messed up, and doing it in a way that's so, as Dana said, so elegant, where she's able to do it where she doesn't sound, she's striking the perfect tone, which like, so she's the one who experienced the thing. Now she has to strike the perfect tone and also like check the person who is asking her to apologize. Like it's a rabbit hole of fuckery.
Mm-hmm. It is a rabbit hole of fuckery.
Rabbit hole of fuckery, guys.
I think that also comes into like some of the responses from the worst human beings on Twitter, like the literal like toe fungus of Twitter, who then like were talking about how like what a skilled manipulation AOC did, as if like Because when a woman talks about her trauma or her experiences, trying to own an experience, they have to find some way to flip it so that she's actually the perpetrator. Like, no, she's the manipulator. This is a witch hunt. The women are, the witches, and the people being accused are the real victims. Like, it's not even enough that you have to be like, oh, women lie about being sexually assaulted, which, like, that's not a thing.
Why would you lie about that?
Yeah,
like you would have there's just no reason to lie about that.
But it's not even enough that they have to accuse her of lying, or that like her story isn't true. But no, she has to be like the perpetrator. She has to be the villain of the piece. That it's like, it is insane to me that people are so sexist and cynical that that's their knee-jerk reaction, is to call her out for being a manipulator.
That used to make me so upset because like if you're in a male-dominated environment, a lot of the time it's like your reality or your lived subjective narrative experience can be seen as like such a different, like it's not even on the radar of things. And then what you realize is like for that guy, for that troll on Twitter or whatever, the landscape in which he lives is like the alternative of that is so mind-shattering, ground-shattering, like would break his understanding of the world. Do you understand? Like if he acknowledged that experience or pain of like AOC or whoever that person is real. Because now it's like it shifts everything that you thought you knew in the ground beneath you. And that means it would shift who you think you are and who you are to other people. And so you're asking for an entire identity shift from this dude. And that's why people, I think, hold on to that identity of like, she has to be lying because there's no way this could be true, because who does that make me in the world?
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think that they're also confessing by accusing? I've noticed that that's a real it's very widespread. A lot of times when people accuse you of something very ugly that you're like, what the fuck? I would never. It's them assuming because they would do something that everyone else would also do that. I mean, Alyssa, do you think that Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz are people who pretend to have emotions in a bad faith way, and that's why they're accusing AOC of it?
I don't know. I just think they're really bad people. Like just really, really bad people. And they just think that anything that happens to a woman, especially a brown woman, is a lie. Mm-hmm. Like I just think that they're that.
I mean, if you're Ted Cruz,
disgusting.
it doesn't even matter if someone's doing bad things to your wife, apparently.
It's true. I mean,
any woman.
Donald Trump couldn't have said more bad things about Ted Cruz's wife. And he's like, all's forgiven. Get me back on the team.
He should be banned from getting to use movie quotes. Aaron, you were like, did a whole thread about like how he gets to quote movies. And I was like, no one who made these movies likes you. Like you really shouldn't be allowed to poorly summarize
Literally
any
the people
movie.
who made the movies came out and were like, what the fuck are you talking about?
A producer from The Watchmen was like, I have no idea what this is. No, literally nobody has been like, right on, Ted.
Literally get my words out of your mouth.
Yeah, I was in a writer's room with his college roommate, who is the guy who created Chernobyl. Brilliant dude. That guy fucking hates Ted so much. Craig Mazin is his name. Craig is a very, very nice guy, super funny, very smart, hates Ted. I have a theory that Ted really wishes that he had Craig's life, and he super doesn't.
I think that's totally true.
So many of these like alt-right assholes really want to make it in Hollywood and really wish that they had like the success and cachet of so many people who like whose lives they have to watch on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. I love it too because half of them, they kind of live out their coolness that they want by like when they're out campaigning and they feel like rock stars, and then they do something like play a song from 38 Special, and 38 Special sends a cease and desist. It's like, stop playing my music. Allman Brothers are like, stop playing our music. Everyone, the Village People, stop playing our music.
Dropkick Murphys were like, Scott Walker, please fucking knock it off. The Dropkick Murphys hate you. You are not doing the right thing.
They also seem like they could beat you up. I wouldn't want the Dropkick Murphys to be mad at me.
No,
Ever.
they're here for a fun time, and if you're fucking with people's fun time, they will kick you with their boots.
It's in the title. It is in the title.
It is in the
as
title.
Advertised.
Dana, you bring up a really interesting point about like jealousy, and I hate this "you're just jealous" thing because it's often wielded against people in order to shut them down. But I really think that Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz are jealous of AOC.
So
Oh my
jealous.
God, of course they are. They could only dream of getting those live numbers.
She is she is able to communicate with a young generation and and people who are generally turned off by politics in a way that no other politician can. She's like somebody compared her Instagram lives to FDR's fireside chats, and I really think they kind of are. And it does seem like there's a lot of jealousy, but nobody ever accuses men of being jealous. We only accuse women of being jealous of each other, but it's clear that these fuckers are jealous of her.
Look, that
Yeah.
little Madison, what's his name, from North
Madison
Carolina, he told on himself when he was like, I admire AOC. He doesn't admire her policy. He admires her fame.
Yeah. I mean, look, we haven't even gotten into him lying about training for the Paralympics yet, because that's the funniest shit in the world. But Alyssa, I want to ask you this. Like, what do you think the right thing is for Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz to do? Is there something that they can do to atone for what they did, not just to AOC, but to everybody who worked in the Capitol on that day? And what do you think they will do? So, like, what should they do and what will they do?
I mean, well, the number one thing they could do, at least as it relates to AOC, is just like be silent and stop trying to make her trauma about yourself, because it is kind of about you, but not in the way you're trying to make it. But no, here's the thing. I think that if Mr. Hawley, who gave this symbol when he was walking in on that day to the people who were protesting outside, if he had stopped there and then been like, you know what? This fucking shit got out of hand, wasn't aware. And if he had stopped there, but he didn't. I mean, the thing with those two fuckers is that they later, after everyone was accounted for, they did a bed check, made sure all the members were still alive and nobody had to go to the hospital, and they went down to finish the business of the body and finish the Electoral College vote. They were like, you know what? Let me just throw down a couple more objections for good measure. Like, that to me was the point of no return. Which is a Kansas song, not 38 Special, but in my head it was 38 Special. And they just, that's it. There's nothing. They can't atone. They are who they are. They have to wear this coat for the rest of their lives. Like, the shame of what they did and who they supported. And when, even after all the bad shit they did, even up until 2 o'clock that afternoon, if they had, once everybody was safe and accounted for, said, she got out of control, let's fucking lock this election down and let's move on, that might have been one thing, but they haven't. So there's no forgiveness. They have to like live with this for the rest of their lives.
What about the violence in the language too? There was
Totally.
so much. I mean, I think that's one thing that is kind of glazed over out of this story when you hear like Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley retell it. Like, I objected, that's my right. But what about all of the violence in the language, all of the inciting to riot in this language? That's a big piece of this story.
Totally.
Your words have impact, and you were an active part of that inciting to violence. And that's where it, when they're like, I can't exercise, the Josh Hawley being muzzled article, right, for instance, it's like, but you're forgetting that you really were instrumental in inciting the riot that put other people at risk. And that's the part of this that's always been the thing with free speech that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to use it to harm other people.
Mm-hmm. It's like when they can't win an argument on its merits, they have to then victimize themselves as the victims of this cancel culture of like, no, you just think the wrong people are being canceled. You just don't like that people dislike what you're saying and are telling you to shut up. Mm-hmm. So now, instead of arguing the actual point, you're going to create this like victim complex around you that you're the one being silenced, and that's now the most important issue.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people on the right complain about cancel culture, they're complaining about consequence culture. Like, you did something. You have to you did something.
You did a thing. Yeah.
You did a thing. Like, there used to be a column on this now defunct website called XO Jane called "It Happened to Me," and when I was on staff at this other women's website, we used to make fun of it because most of the things did not happen to you. It's like, it happened to me. I was racist in a yoga class and got banned. It's like, no, you did that. You did it to yourself. It didn't happen to you. You're experiencing consequences for your actions. Freedom is not freedom from consequences in any universe. You don't get to just do whatever the fuck you want and then not have anything happen. Dana, do you think there's any healing from this? Like, what can happen in order for us to move forward and be okay with it?
Unfortunately, I feel like the worst consequence of Trump and like the things that he's done is showing off the success of a strategy of shamelessness and refusing to apologize and like acknowledge when you've done wrong. And I feel like that's what like wieners like Ted Cruz are trying to emulate. It's like, no, if I just like double down and refuse to show shame, then none of these consequences can stick to me. Where, I mean, the way to heal is for them to acknowledge a shared reality, which is like, it was wildly fucked up objectively that these people stormed the Capitol on the lie that this election was stolen. Like, for any healing to happen, they have to acknowledge that shared reality first, and I haven't seen that.
Kieran, do you think there's any healing? Do you think they need to like resign? Like, what needs to happen?
Yeah, that shared reality thing hits hard, Dana, because it's like, I want to believe in a world where like there could be a reconciliation, but when you hear people living in two really distinct realities that don't seem to match up, I do wonder, how do you find the space for it not to feel like one side won or lost if we can't find that common ground? To me, the win out of this is honestly AOC's eloquence and that willingness to kind of say, like, to be in like the glass of funhouse mirrors and not let those trolls silence you, and kind of stick to her guns and say, like, this is what I felt and this was real, and not let herself be shut down by what a culture said was appropriate. I think there's a lot of power and strength in that, and I hope that lesson resonates and can have some ripple effect outside of this event.
One thing that I've taken away from this is I think AOC, ironically, in publicly talking about her vulnerability and the fact that she experienced trauma and that she is not okay with this, I really think that it showed her strength. And I don't think that there's any way that any of these guys can possibly silence her or get her down. I think it just like makes her more inclined to speak up, which is why she is wired to be in Congress. Like she is afraid, but she keeps going. I don't think that people like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and the knucklehead Wiener caucus, we'll call them, Dana, to use your word. Wiener, we need to use more. I think it's a great insult.
I also did clock that, the use of wiener. I was like,
Thank you.
Wiener
I am
caucus.
a writer.
Sort of fell out of the lexicon.
I think the Wiener caucus underestimates how ineffective they are going to be in silencing her.
Yeah.
Alyssa, any final thoughts on AOC's video and what should happen, and or any other insults you want to throw at Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz or any of those?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's funny that Anthony Weiner would belong in the Wiener caucus.
That's true.
Sorry.